Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners. I'm Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the agency of their dreams. Today, I get to talk to Aalap Shah from 108, a minority-owned digital agency from Chicago, where they focus on accelerating growth for CPG brands. Great to see you again. Thanks for joining me. How are you today?
Thanks for having me on, Steve. Doing good. It's a nice day in Chicago, which has been a nice welcome change from the last week.
The frozen tundra front hasn't settled in over the city yet?
We've been getting kind of like previews to it, but it keeps on zooming back between 30 degrees and 50 degrees. So I'm taking advantage of running outside every time it hits 50.
Amazing. Yeah. It's funny. I take advantage of trying to get fishing every time it hits 50. So below like 40, I'm like, it's a little too cold for me.
Yeah.
So dig into it. I kind of feel like you're kind of an accidental agency owner based on your background. So kind of talk through what your journey to agency ownership was.
Well, I love that question because it completely happened by accident, I feel. Started off, my parents came to this country, I want to say 40, 50 years ago, got to work in all of their entrepreneurial endeavors throughout my childhood and growing up, and really thought I'd do something different and get the white collar 9 to 5. So I studied to become an accountant. Always loved e-commerce and digital marketing, whatever that meant in that era. So I double majored in accounting and e-commerce, and got a job at Deloitte and got my CPA and started consulting, especially around Sarbanes-Oxley at that time. And what I found in that journey and experience, I'll never forget this. It was my birthday. I was set to fly to Cleveland for an audit. I somehow managed to miss my flight through no fault of my own, and got stuck. And that was a day that I realized, and the way that the way that my assignment worked out was I was going to be working the rest of that week around the clock to finish the audit because I only had the 5 days to do it. And I kept on thinking to myself is that if this is what I'm going to do anyways for someone else, like I should do it for myself. So I ended up buying a franchise called Learning Express Toys. I was 23 and definitely very naive. But watching my parents do it, it seemed like, this is something that I could do. And that's where I really fell in love with marketing, like building a community, all the things that social media wasn't back then, which is like that word of mouth, creating traffic. And it was very nascent, but MailChimp had maybe just launched at that time. So using Facebook and MailChimp and doing SEO with like white text on clear backgrounds. Those were all experimented with and became one of the top stores in the system, and really, really enjoyed it and fell in love with marketing at that point. And when I had a chance to exit those businesses, I started my first social media agency with a partner, and that's where everything kind of really came together. So we used SEO to really bring all that business in the door, like TransUnion and Hammacher Schlemmer and some of these really big corporations that wanted to use social media to get that next customer in the funnel. And then again, I had an opportunity to exit because I really wanted to be at that intersection of retail, D2C, and Amazon. I bought an Amazon business in actually the fishing space. It sold gaffs and fishing belts and whatnot. And I was super hungry to learn how Amazon worked because I knew that would be part of my future and the future of my industry. And so then when I had the opportunity to exit SoMe Connect, which was my previous agency, I built an agency really on those three pillars or the epicenter of Amazon D2C and retail, because I knew that my brands that I wanted to work with wanted to make sure that they were there for any of those moments that customers had.
And when you refer to retail, you mean brick and mortar?
Brick and mortar. Yeah.
So the focus is really driving traffic to foot traffic in a store, to clicks on Amazon, or clicks to owned D2C consumer based. So it's all consumer based that you're focusing on.
Yeah, the majority of my clients, though I do some other consulting for B2B businesses, the majority of my business is all just getting traffic and helping our brands add to cart wherever their consumers might be. And it's really fun. Like if you look at something like retention and loyalty or email marketing, how do you use, Klaviyo to drive a consumer to shelf for a Costco pilot, and or at the same time introduce them to maybe a specific drop on D2C, right? And really maximize the entire journey of a consumer. And that's where I have the most fun imagining. And
love that. So you've owned 108 for 5 years now.
We just celebrated our 5 years November 8th.
Awesome. Congratulations. Tell me the story behind kind of the name and the philosophy of the culture and how you run the business.
Absolutely. I'd say that 108, or my agency, came to life in a relatively kind of dark moment. I had just sold my agency. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do next, even though I had this kind of vision of bringing these three channels together. Our third baby was born on November 11th. So it was quite a busy week. I sold my business November 4th. I started 108 November 7th, and then he was born on November 11th.
Wow.
It was a busy, busy week. And I really wanted to just figure out how this could work, because at that time, at least, I couldn't find an agency that did all of those three things, or at least did those three things well. So first, that's kind of how that came about, and my passion and desire of wanting to create this business after my exit. And then for the name, it's such a personal connection to that name, because 108 is actually the number of beads in a mala or a rosary or many different japa malas throughout different cultures and religions. I just love that spirituality of it, and I really love the intentionality behind it. To think about being mindful, holistic, unified. To me, there's this really deep significance of what we can bring to the table, not only for our clients, but to the world as a team, and really thinking about how things are so connected. And so that really helps unify our team and our agency around having that intention in our services and working together to create those outcomes and impacts that we want to. And then, of course, in Hinduism, 108 is a very deeply sacred number as well. It's also in yoga and meditation, as we've talked about previously. So I just love that connection I love that holistic connection that it brings to the table.
Does that carry down, in a top-down culture, like into your team or the core values of the company, or is that like you personal and that doesn't really translate down into the culture?
It's a mix of both. It really is personal to me and how I pitch new business and win new business. I'm really connecting the dots through the data studio that I've been working on and developing for many years with some very talented individuals. It really comes down to how we care for each other at our agency too, right? And thinking about how can we be thoughtful and intentional in our asks? How can we be responsible? And how can we kind of think in just I'm overusing the word holistic, but just thinking about how everything fits and connects together versus just I'm working on paid media or I'm just working on Amazon. So it does flow into our culture in that way. And it's just energy too, at the end of the day, right? It's bringing that energy to the table and being present.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think it's beautiful. I just think the intention and the meaning behind it brought down into an agency culture is so different and a breath of fresh air. And so for it to be ingrained in the culture and not just something hanging on the wall, or you know what I mean? Like to me, that is just a breath of fresh air. So you recently acquired you said the minority business owner status for the agency.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you?
It was a process for sure. I think it's so good that there is so much required to become any or obtain any sort of certification. But it was something that I started 3 years ago to become certified as a minority-owned business by a national body, it's called. And it just is a very intensive process of paperwork and documentation and interviews and site visits and all these things. But I'm really excited. My previous business had it as well, and really thinking about how it allows us to talk to larger corporations, hopefully, is the intention there. And how do we at least get a look from some of these corporations that are looking to think about diversifying their supplier base?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in it. I'm excited to see kind of through the next year what you return from that investment and how it opens doors for you, and kind of just gives you, I guess, a more fair seat at the table. If you look at the statistics of, Caucasian-owned agencies, minority-owned, veteran-owned, et cetera, I mean, it's very small piece of the pie, and so to, get you seats at tables with companies that you might otherwise just totally been ignored by, I think is just a really valuable certification for you.
I really appreciate that. And I also think it flows into when we think about intentionality about how I built my team, right? Really bringing that diverse perspective to our clients, having and making sure that we're bringing to the table a collection of thoughts, whether it's not just from a US-based perspective, but from a global perspective. So I think about diversity in lots of different ways. And I think it's really important that brands and corporations think about how to bring all these different voices together. And so I'm hoping with the certification that it gives us that, at least like you said, and I think at least a look, right? At least we become part of the consideration set. And that's what's exciting to me to think about when I think about certifications as a whole, is that we recently acquired an agency that's B Corp certified. I mean, again, right, that's a different type of certification, but companies are looking for brands and agencies to work with that have that mindset in view. And what I love most about that acquisition is that it's called Heart Creative, and it really fits beautifully with 108 and Heart. I mean, it's kind of just bringing this heart and soul idea that I love to the table.
Yeah. So what was the motivation behind was it you were just looking to grow through acquisition, or was it an agency that you had partnered with previously? Like, what was that process like for you?
One of the things that we knew that was missing at 108, and what I've done with 108 is really build out 4 pillars, because what company or brand wants to hire an agency that can do everything? Like, that list is 0, no matter what certification you have. So I wanted to build and lead with expertise. So we have an Amazon pillar that's led by Jake. We have a retail pillar, we have a creative pillar, and a performance pillar, which is what I lead. The gap that I saw was really that content production at scale. So with the acquisition of Heart Creative, we now have access to one of the largest test and production kitchens in at least the Pacific Northwest, or if not the US.
Wow.
It's a sizable facility and studio, and that primarily works with CPG brands in that food, beverage, health, beauty space. And now we can do all sorts of on-demand photography and video, partner with influencers, build out recipes, test different products. It's a pretty neat pillar and service to bring to our clients that now can feed my Facebook ads or email marketing efforts or creative campaigns. So it really becomes truly, as cliche as this might be, the heart of all of our different pillars, because now we can create that content and not rely just on existing assets or other partners that we may not have had access to in the past.
So it's creators, but it's also brick and mortar studio space with kitchens and lifestyle studios, et cetera, built out into it.
Yeah, there's a couple different sets in there, and it's actually a big departure from how I wanted to build 108. 108 is a very remote, co-working based business, and to actually have a landlord and a lease and all those things initially were a little bit mind-boggling to me because I've already done that model before. But this is really unique in the sense that we just now have space and talent to create really cool stuff. And when I say stuff, to me, it's like when I see Facebook or Google or email and all these types of things that are performance based, how do you create that content you need to respond and react quickly?
Yeah.
We're just not able to do so rapidly. And now we can for our clients, which I'm excited about.
And it's also a lot less juggling of where can we rent studio space? Who's got a kitchen that we can use? We have to dolly in a light kit, and not like you've got stuff set up right there, ready to go. And yeah, so there's definitely got to be an immense amount of value to your customers for that as well. So it's awesome.
I agree. And it's a whole new business for me to learn. Thankfully, it comes with some incredible talent that we were able to retain and help us move forward with. But we're super pumped about that. And to me, it's like I'm always learning something new, right? So whether it's that whole world, that photo, video, having a space is brand new to me. When I look at my career, though, that's how I've been able to push the needle and get moving further into the future. So I'm excited to learn more about it and bring it to the table for all of our clients.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's super exciting. And you did that to kind of celebrate your 5th year. Like, hey, what should we do this anniversary? Let's buy another business.
Yes.
So prior to that, your team was fully remote globally?
Fully remote prior to that. Though I've always had a space in the heart of the Loop in Chicago as our kind of main office headquarters. And we've been mostly just hosting monthly events or quarterly events. So we've been slowly ramping up to get people together. A sizable contingent of my team is here in Chicago or Chicagoland, and mostly in the Midwest. And then we have a few people out on both coasts. So what I've been doing is a very slow, let's start meeting and breaking bread together and getting to know each other, because culture gets lost, I think, in a remote environment. And that's been one of the biggest challenges. And I was thinking about your question earlier, is how do you retain culture if you can't see and speak and hear voice and tone? Like Slack is just not, a good mechanism. So I've been turning to, even on Slack, like voice memos and Loom videos to like just show face in a lot of ways, because so much more can be conveyed than just a written message. So this coming quarter, we are exploring ways to bring folks back into the office, like 1 day a week, and just slowly get more people collaborating and connecting. And that's my real intention. It's clear that people can work remotely and get their work done. Now it's like, how do we actually collaborate and create that end-to-end connection between people?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think productivity is one thing. Having flexibility to whatever, go surfing or snowboarding or catch a yoga class midday, or like the thing that people are passionate about, and allowing that to happen, throughout the workday or whatever. But the true connection and bond with teammates that you're looking to rely on and trust, and sure, you're not trusting them with like a death fall off of a cliff, but trusting that you're going to meet a deadline and get work done, and that a thing or two about them. That doesn't happen over Zoom or Slack. Like you said it, breaking bread, spending time together, laughing, whatever that thing is in person, that gels a team in ways that I don't know that remote ever can, So I'm glad that you're intentional about that. I think that goes a long way in loyalty and loyalty to team and to brand and employer brand as well.
Well, even picking up on what you said, just laughing together, right? Like just getting that emotion or shaking a hand. Like I already saw, like we had this pretty big holiday event and 5-year celebration dinner 2 weeks ago. Just even seeing how people are interacting after that has been awesome to see, right? Because there's a whole bunch of new people that haven't met before, haven't gotten a chance to meet, and just seeing that spark has been pretty fun.
Yeah. Business development and relationship development for business purposes is exponentially stronger when it's in person. And if you think about a Slack meeting for discovery or onboarding, or even, just a preliminary, not Slack, like a Zoom meeting or Teams meeting, starts at 2:00, it ends at 3:00. There's an agenda. We're going to dig in. There's no, how was Timmy's softball game or anything. Like, you don't really get to know somebody on a relationship level as much as you did when you were doing in-person client development, relationship development, meals or whatever. And so I do think that a lot has been lost in, some of the benefits of doing things remote, but so many more benefits of doing it in person.
I agree 100% because like, if you think about like when you enter into a Zoom meeting and there's like those 5 or 7 minutes sometimes before everyone joins in, like I try to be incredibly intentional and like spark conversations or find out things or like ask about plans. And that's how I connected more deeply with my clients. But I probably spend a significant amount of my time on the road, whether it's meeting partners at Klaviyo or Shopify or meeting clients or attending events. To me, that's what's really fueled our new business, is really being out there and doing as many things as I possibly can. I'll even just set up trips. I'm like, okay, I'm swinging through like LA and Portland, whether it's my network that I'll reach out to or just my clients, grab coffee or lunch. And that's been a huge driver of our success and growth over the past, I feel at least, over the past several years.
Yeah. You do a decent amount from a philanthropical standpoint. Again, intentional, culture-driven, which I think is really powerful just from an agency standpoint. So is that a big part of what your personal role is with the agency, is leading that? Or is there like a cheerleader on your team that leads those efforts?
When I first started 108, my 3 pillars were our community, our clients, and our team, right? And I really wanted to make sure we hit those 3 areas as critically as possible. For our team, it's like that constant growth, learning, evolution, opportunity. For our clients, like how do we make an impact on revenue and outcomes? And then for our community is how do we take everything that we know to bring it all together, right? And there's so many facets that we can contribute to. So on the giving back side of things, we do it in 2 ways, or we operate in 2 or 3 different ways. One is just pro bono services to nonprofits and businesses that we encounter and see an opportunity to partner and work with. Personally, serving on boards, and one of my favorite ones that I'm on and one that's very dear to me is called Bookwalla. So not only providing some marketing assistance and services around it, but really being that advocate. They basically build libraries and orphanages throughout India, and they're expanding to other parts of the globe.
Wow.
And then also making sure that our team has that time and space to do things that they want to contribute to, right? And making sure that we have the time or resources. So lots of different ways that we try to get involved in our community and become that fabric. Because to me, it's like, yes, to your point, like our clients are also doing these things, our team members are doing these things. Like I want to make sure we have a very integrated approach to how we live.
Yeah, I love that. And then you mentioned you run the performance pillar of the 4 groupings of the agency. What's your as CEO? What's your day to day? Are you actually hands on with client work, or are you more top level operational?
It's interesting that you say that because I was just writing some 2024 plans. I have a quasi informal board of advisors, and I got some really good points from them in talking to them over the last week. And the one area that I'm not as good at is focusing. I'm super like 30,000 foot, and I have a hard time like really focusing. So I kind of wrote down my intentions for next year, which is to really focus on sales and key relationships and some of that PR work that I know I can do well in. Today, my day-to-day is everything from like finances to managing some clients, leading some strategy. Right now, really being hands on deck with our team to help our clients have a strong finish to the 4th quarter. So at the moment, I'm doing many other things that I wish I could translate into what I'm actually good at, my superpower, which is new business and marketing our agency. And that's the part that I'm like, I had the least amount of time for. Because there's so many other things that come along the way. As I'm sure you know, with other agency owners, like it's hard to stay focused on that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to check back in with you in a year and see how much you've been able to get off your plate so you can focus on the top level biz dev stuff, because it's possible, and I believe in you. So we'll see how that can happen for you.
Likewise.
So I want to jump gears real quick and throw a couple of random rapid fire questions at you. And the answers to 2 or 3 of these can either be just across the board personal or professional, and digital or physical. And you'll understand what that means when I jump into it. So the first is, what's a book or something you're binging or a hobby or something that you've got in your life that you just can't get enough of these days?
Running.
Okay.
I love, it is the best amount of time that I have to like sit with myself and think. And we live out by a nature preserve. We just moved here a year ago, and I still can't get over it. Like, it's been one of my favorite things to do for personal time.
That's amazing. I love that you've got that outlet. The sarcastic guy in me is often quick to say to friends they're wrong. What are you running from? But they'll quickly say, "Oh, I'm running to something." Okay, whatever.
There was a time in my life that I was running from something, though. I 100% relate to that. And today the running is more about how do I get ahead and find more time.
It's highly meditative. I tried to run for a bunch of years. I never found that runner's high. I always felt good after running, but it was such a chore for me. And I never really leaned into it.
One other thing I wanted to insert into that is, like, have you heard of like that trend of like forest bathing, or like, I haven't actually like done it formally, but because of the way the woods work in the trails that I run in, it's so meditative to run by the water and the trees. Like, I totally get that idea now. And even if I'm unintentionally doing it, it's been incredible for my well-being.
Yeah, running through the woods or just being in nature, it's so magical. Yeah, it does so much to our spirits. What's a tool that you recently integrated into your life? Again, digital, physical, personal, professional, that you think to yourself, how did I ever live without this thing?
It's really Looker Studio and this view that we built for GA4. So I've never had to worry about this, right? Because Google Analytics was just so easy to use in some ways, like the universal analytics. And I've been struggling with GA4 personally. As a data geek and a nerd, like, I've been really struggling with GA4. And it turns out that we built all these screens that like make it beautiful. And I'm like, why haven't I been using this? And why am I not really amping up on this? So that's probably my newest quiver in my arsenal, I guess, that I've been using to talk to my clients and our people about.
It's insanely powerful. I personally hate the name Looker, but I guess it makes sense at some levels. But they didn't ask me, so whatever.
And they didn't ask us before they unleashed GA4 either.
True, yeah. But they gave a long lead time on the deadline, so yeah.
Which is nice.
And then finally, what's an invaluable piece of business advice that you can share with our listeners?
Niche down. So actually, one of my advisors that I met with, he's known me for 10 plus years, both agencies. My first agency said, Aalap, you got to stay focused and drill down to the one or two industries that you want to win and accelerate on. And that's how you're going to win the market. Didn't listen to him. Not that I didn't listen to him. I didn't see how I could do that because I needed to generate revenue in that agency. So 6 or 7 years later, after I sold that agency, I took his advice to heart, and it has been the most incredible piece of advice. Now, I'm not saying that I'm 100% focused. I'm still CPG, and I'm still trying to figure out like which industry to cut out because I'm in food, beverage, health, beauty, and toys. But it was great to see a smile on his face when I met with him for lunch last week, and for him to say, "Hey, I see that you're taking my advice. Keep on editing." Right. And I've seen it. The growth of our agency, because we have this focus on whether it's the D2C Amazon retail or the food beverage, has been awesomely. Like, the growth is just different than my last agency.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And it's almost always hindsight that says, I should have niched, and I'm glad I'm doing it now. So I'm grateful for you sharing that with us.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It was really fun to talk.
Thank you for your time. I'm super grateful for it. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.